Good evening. Thank you so much for joining ABS Television for another special presentation. Well, as the lead-up continues towards the 16th general election since universal adult suffrage that takes place on January 18 next Wednesday, ABS Television has invited the leaders of the three main political parties to have a primetime discussion. A look at some of the key issues in this campaign and how their vision aligns with taking Antigua and Barbuda forward at a time of great uncertainty in the world community. In fact, the IMF, the World Bank, the IDB, all the multilateral agencies have indicated that significant challenges are on the horizon. Significant downside risks are on the horizon for the world economy. In fact, the World Bank recently indicated that for the first time, the US, the EU, and China will be a slug, a draw on global growth. In fact, the IMF Managing Director, Kristalina Georgieva, indicated that a third of the world's economy will be in a recession this year. She says it will be tougher this year than last year. So within that global context, how will Antigua and Barbuda navigate those challenges? So that's what we will be discussing with the leaders of the main parties. Facts and figures. We'll be highlighting light and not heat. We're taking away the emotion from the debate and having a dispassionate, factual, plausible look at the challenges facing this country, the region, and the world, and to look at how their policies will help the country to navigate those challenges. Of course, we're also on the cusp of the fourth industrial revolution, about artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, biotechnology, etc. How will their policies accord with taking the country to be a part of this fourth industrial revolution? The first of the leaders who have joined us, and we've extended this invitation to all the leaders of the three major parties, that is, the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party, the United Progressive Party, and the Democratic National Alliance. The first of our guests is the leader of the DNA, it's Joanne Massiah. It is a 1-hour primetime discussion, fair, balanced, and factual. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, and good evening to you, to the viewers and the listeners. And I'm delighted to be in the company of yourself and the esteemed audiences.
Happy New Year to you as well.
And to you as well, sir.
Indeed, all the very best. So this was a policy document that you did before the 2018 general elections, and it's called A Roadmap to Prosperity, The Good Life for Antigua Barbuda, 2018 policy document. In that, you indicated that as a fresh, new, and dynamic political organization, the DNA is advocating for a different type of politics and a new style of leadership for a beloved country, and we are unshakably committed to the tenets of transformational leadership, quote unquote. Have you been able to do that so far?
Oh, certainly. We continue to spread our message of transformational leadership and transformational change, which we see are critical elements. In fact, it is the philosophy on which the DNA stands. And as you just outlined, the challenges which the region, our country, and the world will likely experience as we go forward. And we believe that in order for us to navigate, as you said, these challenges, in order for us to ensure that we are able to meet them head-on and successfully and sustainably, we need to have a different approach to politics and a new style of leadership, which we continue to advocate here. We have certainly built our party on those tenets, and we continue to spread the message. And going into this election, we have simply asked the electors to have that courage to change, to ensure that we do not continue with this two-party system, which has so miserably failed the people of Antigua and Barbuda, and to desist from, again, engaging in this exchange model. We swap red for blue, we swap blue for red. And really, we have not seen the sorts of exponential development, the exponential advancement of people, of society, of communities. No major difference in people's lives and their livelihoods as we approach our 42nd year of political independence. So I'd say yes, we continue to do that. People are persuaded, they're encouraged, they're attracted to that message of transformational leadership and transformational change.
We'll come to transformational leadership. We'll kind of unpack what do you mean by transformation in a short time. But let's talk about the party itself,
Yes.
you've gone through some changes, some challenges.
Yes.
It is like any organization, it's gone through flux. You've lost some members, you've gained members.
Yes.
How has it been compared to the last election? Going into the last election, you were pretty much very new at the time. You've added another 5 years since then to the
Yes.
party. How has it been? What's different this time than the last time?
Well, what is different this time, in fact, what is very healthily encouraging, is that for the first time in the politics of Antigua and Barbuda, we in the Democratic and National Alliance, we have created history. It is the first time that the people of this country are being afforded a third political option. It is the first time that a third political party has been able to successfully nominate all 16 candidates on the mainland of Antigua. And we are so humbly proud of that achievement. So that is something that is major. That is something that is new, that is fresh, and dare I say, dynamic. Yes.
All right, and of course you went in with about 13 candidates the last time.
Absolutely.
Now you have 16, all 16 on the
Yes.
mainland.
Yes.
How much of a change would people expect if they were to, let's say, take a serious look at your party? How much of a change would it be from you saying the exchange model where the country essentially goes between the UPP and the Labour Party? What kind of change do you offer?
I would say, just if I just may digress to come back to the question, what I would say is that the people of this country have been looking at the DNA very objectively, very seriously. I would say further that over the last few days, as many persons have examined the manifestos put forward by the other two political parties, I think many of them, based on the feedback that we're getting, even from our own members, they say the DNA, to use the colloquial term, we're in the dance. And in fact, we are the lead dancer to the extent that both political parties have, dare I say colloquially again, cogged a number of the policy initiatives, a number of the phrases, a number of the transformational model that we have been advocating since 2016. And listen, I believe you're familiar with a term that says,
Imitation
is the best form of flattery. Indeed. And so, listen, are we flattered? Of course, because what that has demonstrated is that the DNA is the game changer in this election, notwithstanding that, persons continue to say, oh, the DNA is this, the DNA is that. The DNA is the game changer. We are very serious in our approach to politics and elections. We are not in this race, contrary to what our detractors say. We're not fighting for second place. We are fighting to take over the leadership and the governance of Antigua and Barbuda. And listen, politics, as the late Sylvester Bird reminded us, and over the course of his prime ministership would have reminded us, is fluid, it is dynamic. And I suspect that this election, it has already begun to unfold in a particular way. And we are staying focused, we are fearless, we are undeterred, and we continue to walk the length and breadth of the 16 constituencies, spreading our message, meeting the people where they are, and sharing our policy prescriptions for really transforming their lives and their livelihoods, and indeed the nation state of Antigua and Barbuda.
Again, we're going to come to the policies in a short while.
Yes.
But just a final word on the party itself. So you've lost Bruce Goodwin, you've lost Malika Parker, you've lost Kelson Dalso. So is not a bad optics, suggesting that the party is hemorrhaging some of who are considered to be its stronger people? What about the optics on that?
I don't think so. I think hemorrhage is a bit dramatic. And I know in the politics it's important for persons to dramatize things. There's been no hemorrhage. In fact, the DNA is in a great place. The DNA continues to show just how resilient we are, The DNA continues to demonstrate that the party is attractive to other persons. So I would say, listen, we have been able to fill those departures in very short order, which again has caused us to be in that historic place on December the 28th, 2022. And anybody who knows me will tell you that I value each and every person. I don't have any person here, any person there, any person down here. I believe in an egalitarian type of system. That is where my leadership is. I recognize that we all bring different skills and talents and competences to the table. And if you and I tell my team all the time, if all of us are the same, then only one of us is necessary. And so I love the dynamism that is being brought to us. I love the fact that we are different, that our skill sets form part of the composite whole of this live and living being, this organism called the DNA.
What about the persons who've left?
Yes.
There's a view in the public, Ms. Massiah, that they left because they figured that the party was going nowhere, that it was a sinking ship, essentially, and they pretty much wanted to save themselves before they sank with the ship. What about that?
I would say again that whether it is you or those in the public who purport to have that view, dramatic again. And I understand the need to be dramatic in the politics, to be sensational, but we totally reject that. And I'm going to tell you, so that we can advance this discussion this evening, I have famously said for all of my life, all of my mature life, that the one thing I will not be in this life is Lot's wife. I do not ever look back. I only look forward. We are on a mission as our party to move this country forward, to transform lives and livelihoods, to demonstrate that we can continue, I said, to be a leader, certainly in the OECS, and to come to meet any country, any developer, any investor at the table, and to do right by the people of Antigua and Barbuda. So here we are, persons in the politics all over, certainly here in Antigua and Barbuda. Persons, like Shakespeare said, they're actors. You have entrances and you have exits. And when we examine the other two political parties, you would have seen persons would have moved. That's the dynamism. That is the fluidity of politics. We've seen right now in this present government, the Honorable Chet Green, the Honorable Dean Jonas, for example, the Honorable Colin James. Those persons were persons who were firmly rooted in the United Progressive Party at any one time. We've seen movements in the past, Dr. Errol Court, and right now we see one Mr. Sean Bird, one Mr. Sherfield Bowen, who was not only a member of the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party, but an elected member for the constituency of St. Philip South not so many years ago. So listen, as I said, it may serve certain people's interests to try to sensationalize certain things. But again, we are resilient, we are strong, and we are going firmly forward on January the 18th, 2023.
Let's talk about the party's chances, your chances,
yes,
in, for example, St. Philip's
yes,
South, and party generally. In 2018, you got the 4th highest number of votes.
Yes.
In All Saints East and St. Luke, a seat you held in Parliament. You got 64 votes, 654 votes in all, 654 votes across the 13 candidates in 2018. What can people realistically expect? I mean, in terms of this one?
Well, let's contextualize this. In 2018, our party was 11 months old, having been formed the April of the previous year. In addition to that, we had not yet put a full slate together. We were in the process of doing that. And I think like any astute politician, any astute prime minister would, there was a lot of debacle, I would dare say melee, if you will, in the United Progressive Party, which was primarily caused by my very public expulsion from that party and our determination to form a new party, to give the people of the country something new, something different, real political options. And so I rather suspect that the Prime Minister, seeing that sort of melee, thought it was an opportune time to call in elections. In terms of the total number of votes cast, we have to remember as well that some 12,000 people absented themselves from voting. We don't know if those persons would have voted, how they would have voted. But what I can say, over the past 4 years or so, the public has seen the growth, the maturity, the development of the DNA. And so I think, I am rather confident, Mr. Burford, that the people of Antigua and Barbuda are very anxious to go to the polls on January 18th and to send a message of change and not a message of exchange. In terms of my seat, Mr. Burford and listeners and viewers, I intend to win the St. Philip South constituency. I intend to win it. Remember, in every constituency, save and except for 2, it is a 3-person race. And in those that have 4, it is a 4-person race. This is a very simple mathematical formula to the extent that politics, which it is about numbers. And the first past the post system says you just need, in our case with the 3, 1/3 plus 1. That's what is required. And you know, I have to remind the listeners that in 2004, in the constituency of All Saints West, the former representative, the Honourable Chandler Codrington, would have taken that seat in a most fantastic way, high margin of victory. In the 2009 elections, he won the seat by over 1,000 votes. And in 2014, along comes one Michael Brown, unknown, a political unknown. But what did he do? He worked that seat. He walked, as I understood it, day in, day out, and sold himself. Politics is about connecting with people. Politics is about having persons buy into a vision which you're sharing. It is about competence. It's about substance. It's about capacity. And given the challenges which we face here in Antigua and Barbuda and have faced for, I dare say, the past 8 years, I believe persons are looking critically at those candidates who are presented to them. They're looking critically at the performance of previous governments, present government, and to our credit, we have never run the affairs of this country. But I say, dare say, for myself, as a former minister of government, any task to which I have been charged, I have performed exemplary. I have brought pride to the people of Antigua and Barbuda in any ministry in which I have been charged to lead. And so I bring both substance, I bring capacity, I bring maturity, I bring vision, I bring level-headedness, I bring respect, I bring a whole range of qualities that I believe the people of Antigua and Barbuda are craving for in a prime minister at this time.
So clearly you've set your sights on being prime minister following next Wednesday's election. Let's talk about the change that you want people to vote for, the change to your party. What would they be changing to? How transformational, really transformational, is the DNA? Or is it essentially the other side of the same coin or the other two?
Could never be. Because if we were, then why would we form a new party? We recognize, as I said, we have for way too long, for in excess of 50 years, we have essentially engaged, or the voters have been called to participate in a political volley where we're swapping one side for the other. And when you examine development, when you examine advancement of people, of communities, of livelihoods, I think on an honest analysis, persons would say, if you could just, for a moment, many persons, just strip yourself of your partisan view and say, where are we as a country? People would say we could have been further along. We ought to have been further along. And this is what the DNA is saying, that with the election of a DNA government, we will bring a new approach to leadership.
Let's talk about specifics on that new approach, Mr.
Yes.
Massiah. What specifically would be different about the DNA? Is it ideologically different? from the other two parties? Or is it a case where you have some such transformational, such radically different policies that would catalyze a significant level of growth? And before you answer,
Yes.
please, let me fill you in on the growth numbers. These are the growth numbers from ECLAC, the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, saying that Antigua and Barbuda is estimated to have grown by 8.5% in 2022, projected to grow by 7.6% this year. The regional average, this is the Caribbean average excluding Guyana, was 4.5% for 2022, 3.3% in 2023. Some persons would argue, quite justifiably in some cases, that these are pretty high levels of growth, beyond the average of the region. Isn't that suggesting that there is meaningful results from policies?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, when we look at these numbers, and this government has famously said to us, look at these numbers. We're growing by 7%, 8%. We're projected to grow by X percent. But I think you measure growth, really, in what happens on the ground, what happens in communities, how people are advancing. And listen, there are some sectors that will naturally skew numbers. You know that. When we look at our average income, for example, you have persons who make phenomenal salaries, and that in itself skews the average, Mr. Burford. And so when we look at growth, you have to tell me, let us drill down on the numbers. Those numbers, I think you can tell me, you have the paper there, they are largely driven by construction. They're largely driven by...
It doesn't disaggregate the numbers.
Okay, it doesn't
These
disaggregate
are raw
them.
GDP
But this is
numbers.
what I've heard the government say. Even recently, on a particular radio station, when they were trying to persuade us and convince us of this growth, right? Have we seen the changes in the living standards of the people? Have we seen the growth reflected in persons' wages and salaries? We are at a stage now in this country where we are, and have been for a while now, speaking about an increase to the minimum wage, for example. And the last change came in 2014 in November. We are almost 10 years down the road from that. And we've seen cost of living escalate. We've seen inflation out of the roof. We've seen mass numbers of underemployment.
The minimum wage was raised last year as well. The cabinet approved the rate to $9 per hour.
Okay, so what are we asking now? We're saying in this era in which we live, when the average family can barely afford to feed themselves nutritionally, where the average income can barely afford to take care of the basics in a family, we're seeing this government propose a wage increase of 80 cents. We've seen this government be told...
minimum wage increase?
Minimum wage, I'm talking, in the increase in the minimum wage by 80 cents. If you go outside on any given day and you ask the average person in the street, will this 80 cents, for example, will it allow you to improve your standard of living? Will it help you to better meet the needs of your family? Will it help you to meet the aspirations of your children? Will it allow you to qualify at whether a bank or a credit union, one of the government homes, which are so heavily subsidized, we are told? And the answer is a resounding no. When we look at increases to the minimum wage, we have to also at the same time look at the shifts in different things that will affect income. For example, you are fully aware that the increase in Social Security is going up this month. And so when you measure that increase of 80 cents versus the increase in Social Security, I dare say, and we dare say, and people dare say, that the average person will be worse off.
How would the DNA be different, Mrs.
We have said, based on numbers we've looked at, based on speaking to technicians in various government sectors, in just our own analysis, we have said, and we give that promise, that under a DNA government, the minimum wage can be no less than $10.25.
Who do you speak with?
We have to.
Can you share who we spoke with?
We speak with people in the statistics division, in the Ministry of Finance. We speak to former civil servants. We speak to people in the private sector. I'm not going to name anybody specifically because we live in a country where freedom really isn't free. And so we do not simply isolate ourselves in some sort of echo chamber and say this is good. We test our policies against persons in government, in private sector, in communities to ensure that when we put something down, it is realistic, it is feasible, it is implementable, and most importantly, it is sustainable and will have real measure, real impact to improve people's lives and their livelihoods.
Ms. Massiah, the government, the cabinet has approved a $9 increase. The UPP said it would go to $10. You're saying $10.25. The concern has always been the balance. How do you ensure that you provide as much as possible a livable wage without forcing employers, especially small businesses, to cut costs, to cut employees as a result, because it's unaffordable, the wage cost is unaffordable. Did you consult with a wide as possible a base of the private sector, especially small businesses, to look at the impact that would have, 10.25? Because that's quite significant.
Yes, well, you see, the DNA doesn't do anything in isolation. We are about the totality. We are about comprehensive evaluation of our policies and the impact, how it affects businesses, people, and so on, industry on a whole. And we have devised, and I've heard both political parties speak about it in more recent times. We firmly believe that in order for us to move this country forward, in order for us to move industries forward, to invite the growth in new and emerging businesses, we must create what other governments have not done, and that is a level playing field for both foreign and especially local direct investors. The DNA was the first party to speak about these LDIs, local direct investors, and we recognize in speaking to them that it is small businesses in the aggregate that really move our economy. We recognize that, as you've said, what our proposals are will have some shifts, maybe some shocks in particularly small businesses. So what we have said, in looking at a holistic picture, we have said that we will offer certain tax breaks, certain tax concessions to businesses who, whether they're new, they're existing, who expand, and we are going to tailor-make certain reduction in taxes based on the number of employees that a business could employ. We start from 1 to, let's say, 5, 10, and we will tailor, we'll have a range, a guide as to what concessions you can expect to receive from the government. Concessions could take the form of reduction in utilities, for example, reduction in duties and taxes for importation of goods, and so on. When our policy document comes out in another day or two, you will have opportunity to look at it at a more granular level. You cannot expect to just make wild and whimsical statements and promises without really doing the side work. The DNA is a party that does its side work. And I can say to you that our Shadow Minister of Finance, Mr. Anthony Stewart, is among the best that this country has to offer. And he is a man of detail. He's a man who is about conciseness, accuracy, because we are not here to continue the volley. We are here to move the people forward. We're here to move country forward.
I'm going to come back to the policy document. I was asking quickly in terms of why is it taking so long? Why did you have to wait another day or two? Because essentially we have
Mr. Burford, I would have started this interview by telling you that we have, I'm going to say, suffered from the cogging that has taken place in a most unethical, in a brazen way by both of our opponents, okay? And we knew, we're not as resourced as the other political parties. And so their manifestos are out. We say we don't have a manifesto. We purport and have purported a policy document which outlines a long-term vision for redevelopment of both economy and society. And the reason that is necessary is because manifestos really are what we have called in the DNA elusive promises. And you, if you were to take the manifestos from 2018 and really examine them and to say, well, let's see what the government, they're the government, what have they achieved? And I can bet you, I'd bet you that they've achieved less than 8% of the things that are promised in that. Because why? There is no long-term development plan. We have crafted since 2017 a long-term development plan, which we dubbed since 2017, and we continue to speak to it every time our people come to media, every time we write. It's called Vision 2040. That belongs to the DNA. I see another political party has brazenly said they have a Vision 2040. And I recall distinctly that when we first touted and said to the people, if we are going to transform this country, this economy in a meaningful way, we must have a long-term development plan with short-term implementation goals. We deal with the low-hanging fruit, we look to the medium term, we look to the long term. And recognizing that this Vision 2040 is a living document that has to be tweaked to be responsive to certain economic changes, to certain social changes.
Let's go back, Ms. Massiah, please, to the $10.25 that you're proposing to be the minimum wage if your party were to be elected next week. There's a minimum wage advisory committee the government constituted. It had several months of discussions, broad-based consultations, and it came up with a range that Cabinet deliberated on and then settled at $9. You're saying you know better, your party knows better than this minimum wage committee?
I am saying I don't know what went into those discussions. I'm not sure what the Cabinet may have influenced. I'm not sure what information they had. But I'm saying to you that when we look at minimum wage, we cannot look at minimum wage without examining carefully inflation. And what is being proposed with the current situation with inflation, the people of this country are not going to be making a livable wage. When we look at pensions, for example, and the challenges facing pensioners in this country, and which they've faced for the past 8 years or 9 years, Mr. Burford, what pensioners are getting, what the minimum wages with inflation being here, I'm going to say poverty has definitely increased. I'm going to say that malnutrition has been normalized in this country because people, the average family, cannot afford to feed themselves in a nutritious way. Hold on, just this morning, I visited two alleys in the City West constituency. And I have been haunted all day. And it's going to haunt me until January 18th. Because the living conditions of these many families in these alleys, I'm not exaggerating. I immediately called two friends and I said, I swear I was in a time capsule and I'm somewhere in some really underdeveloped country the way these people are living. These people are constituents of our Prime Minister. And I'm one who believes that the constituency of any Prime Minister must be a model constituency. It must be one where the people's living standards are above the average, Mr. Burford.
But you believe in egalitarianism, so why would that be the case?
Sorry?
You believe in egalitarianism. You just said it earlier.
Yes.
That you believe in an egalitarian
yes.
solution. So wouldn't there be the concern and wouldn't there be the pushback that, okay, well, this is not fair. The Prime Minister's considering it's not to suggest that there shouldn't be high living standards across.
Yes.
But wouldn't the policy be a better one to ensure that there are high living standards across the board?
Well, it will be across the board, but it has to start somewhere. And I say this particularly with the Prime Minister's constituency and the former Prime Minister's constituency, because these are two of the most socially and economically depressed communities, which means that they have a higher lift. In St. Philip South, there is some poverty, but the standard of living is much higher than the average, I would say. When you go to communities such as St. Philip's, Lions Estate, for example, Bethesda, Piccadilly, Christian Hill, Freetown, what I see in some of these other depressed communities, I'm not seeing as an average, as a standard there. And so my point is that our Prime Minister, the present Prime Minister, with his entrepreneurial socialism, with this economic powerhouse that he keeps touting, which we believe is the biggest fraud ever perpetrated against the people of Antigua and Barbuda. What happens and exists in his constituency belies that fraud.
Let's come back to this issue before we go to the next break, or go to a break. On the, you said you've been carrying out some consultations, discussions. As I said, the Minimum Wage Committee had those consultations, formal consultations with various stakeholders, including the private sector, to balance the situation. Because, again, job loss would be a huge risk the higher you raise the minimum wage to. No, I mean, everybody would want to see the highest. Absolutely, everybody would want to see as high as possible minimum wage. But there would have to be the attendant risk, Ms. Massiah. So my question is, when, for example, even with your tax breaks, we're going to come to the implications of your tax break.
This country has different crises, simultaneous crises going on. We have a water crisis. We have an economic crisis. We have an underemployment crisis. We have an unemployment crisis. And you know what? These crises have one singular thing in common. It begins with M. It's called management. It's about how well you manage the resources of your country. Because Antigua and Barbuda, I have friends both regionally and particularly those who live in the developed countries who say, this country, including people in the diaspora, who say this country is too small for it not to be better managed. It's about management, Mr. Burford.
What about,
let me tell you,
what about the GDP numbers? Wouldn't they suggest decent management?
Let me just finish. These consultations that you speak about that would have gone into the Minimum Wage Advisory Council, under a DNA government, we believe in consultations. We believe that government of necessity includes people in the process and the various processes. What I would have loved is for the Minimum Wage Advisory Committee to go into communities and hold consultations with people, because it's very difficult to put yourself in the shoes of another if you don't ever walk in those shoes. And so again, I go back to the fact that what we've seen over the past 9 years in particular is a situation where men and women operate in an ivory tower called the cabinet, which is essentially an echo chamber where they do not really take into account or understand the real issues challenging people. Let me take this a bit further. Today, I was campaigning in my constituency. And as I listened to the various concerns of the people, let us just take, we also have an infrastructure crisis. And I heard several persons say, you know, if the representative could just drive by here more often, certainly something in him, even his conscience, would say, I have to do better by my constituents. I have to fix this particular road, right? And I said to those constituents, you know what makes this particularly egregious? That their representative, their member of parliament, holds two key positions. I would say, arguably, two of the most influential and powerful ministries in a government, the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Public Works. And I say to my colleague candidate, shame on you.
Let's come back to this issue of, you talk about management of the economy.
Yes.
As you know, there are finite resources in any country. Finite resources in
yes.
country. In addition,
yes.
Wouldn't you argue that COVID-19, which is still a pandemic, and which would have significantly impacted on revenues? We're going to come back to your, because essentially it's not about, we're unpacking your own plans this evening, but essentially how much weighting equivalent do you put to the challenges that COVID-19 would have posed to every country, including developed economies?
Mr. Burford, I would tell you this, the government cannot have it both ways. It cannot, when it is confronted by arguments about how best we could have managed, or we could have managed this better, and that the problems in Antigua and Barbuda, so far as the crises are concerned, is one of management. You cannot on the one hand say, oh, there was this pandemic, and then we would have suffered here, we would have lost revenue here, and at the same time say, when it suits you, oh, we managed this economy very well, and in spite of the COVID numbers and the crisis, we grew, we this, that, and the other. It's either one way or the other. And I posit, because I was very vocal during the COVID-19 pandemic, I believe that the government wasted many opportunities to come to the people, to hear from them, to consult with them about a better approach towards the management of the COVID-19 crisis.
Okay, Ms. Massiah, could I take a quick break? When we come back, we're going to continue that discussion.
Surely.
But when we come back, we're going to drill down specifically into the DNA's policies.
I would love that.
The DNA's ideas.
Precisely.
So, because Ms. Massiah, to be fair,
yes.
You've pivoted a lot of the discussion to what's taking place now in terms, instead of saying, look, this is, apart from the $10.25 that you mentioned, would be the DNA's prescription for the minimum wage increase. I want to hear more about your policies and how you're going to defend them, justify them, explain them within the context that we have, within the context of the IMF, the IDB, and the World Bank saying the world economy is teetering on the edge of a recession this year. We'll come out much more with Joanne Massiah, the leader of the Democratic National Alliance. She says the party is about transformational leadership. We're going to, after this break, drill down on some of those transformational policies, and including how would the DNA navigate the challenges, the flip side of a $10.25 minimum wage increase in terms of the risk to jobs, especially for small businesses. Stay with us.
Let's get social. We're ready to connect with you. Find us on Facebook. Do you tweet? We do. Send us a tweet. Connect with us on Instagram. Keep up to date with news and more at www.abstvradio.com.
Join the good life with iNet Fiber. What's the good life? It's a life with strong, unlimited, reliable, fast fiber internet from iNet. Speed starts at 50 megabits per second for $189.99 per month, which includes access to a special mobile plan starting from $75 per month. Go boldly into your digital life with the world's most advanced broadband connection. Need a strong internet connection with fast upload and download speeds for video calls, gaming, and streaming? Then visit inetfiber.apua.ag to sign up or upgrade to the good life with iNet Fiber.
I have been with state insurance since, I believe, 2006. Life and medical insurance for me are not just important, but essential. Had it not been for the fact that I had medical insurance with state, I am not certain if I would have been able to get the treatment that I required. I have had persons dealing with my situations who are very responsive and persons who actually care. They're going to break things down for you and explain everything for you. Because we know with insurance there's a lot of fine print. Great customer service to me speaks to empathy. It speaks to someone who is going to understand my needs and go all out. And so as an Antiguan, I feel very proud to know that a company like State Insurance exists for an Antiguan like myself.
The date has been announced.
January 18, 2023!
53 candidates have been nominated.
We have the runs in the board, man. We have worked hard. And we can stand up in any forum and defend our stewardship. And we can do so with pride.
Brothers and sisters, redemption is at hand. Time is now. Let us move together with the United Progressive Party.
DNA is the best choice on election day.
And electors are ready to make their decision. ABS is your election headquarters on TV, on radio, and online. This is Decision 2023. No holds barred interviews with the candidates, election officials, pollsters, and pundits. Plus extensive coverage on election day, from the opening of the polls to the announcement of the results. First, factual, fair. ABS, your election headquarters. Welcome back. You're in tune with this special ABS presentation. We are discussing with the leaders of the parties, of the three major political parties, their plans, policies ahead of the next elections that take place on Wednesday, January 18. Our first primetime interview is with Ms. Joanne Massiah, who is the leader of the Democratic National Alliance. In this segment, we're going to be drilling down on the DNA's policies, whether or not they've been fleshed out fully, whether or not they are essentially justifiable, plausible, and whether or not they can really work in a very difficult global environment in terms of the challenges that the world economy is facing. Ms. Massiah, thanks so much for staying with us. So let's talk about, as I said, the tax breaks that you'll give. Have you worked out the revenue implications of those tax breaks, and whether or not, in terms of a cost-benefit analysis, whether or not it would be worth the cost from the tax breaks in terms of saving the jobs that you were trying to do for going 10.25 for the minimum wage?
We are not only trying to, and not only will we save jobs, we will create jobs in terms of the new economy that this country must pursue, right? When we talk about our policy initiatives, I want to talk about three things in particular. I want to talk about tourism, agriculture, education, and we're going to dabble into health as well. Now, if we look at tourism, which is our main industry, which continues to contribute in excess of 70–75% of GDP, we have had the same tourism product essentially since we stumbled into tourism in the 50s, okay? What I say that, we continue to market sun, sea, and sand, and every other Caribbean country continues to market sun, sea, and sand. I have had the privilege of looking at the tourism product, for example, in the Maldives. And listen, they have a product, I think, that could seriously rival ours. And we're saying, listen, the tourism product, and the hoteliers will tell you, the restaurateurs will tell you, our tourism product is tired. It needs to be shaken up. It needs to be revolutionized.
So how would the DNA do that?
Hold on. It needs to be transformed, okay? Now, the underpinning of the DNA's philosophy is diversification. Diversification, and again, we see other parties starting to talk about that, okay? We have the side work, we have the plans, we have the policies. Now, when we look at the tourism product, there are so many subsectors within that product that successive governments have failed to pursue. We can look at, for example, culinary tourism, cultural tourism, heritage tourism, research and development tourism, medical tourism, which we're doing to a certain extent, sports tourism. These are different subsectors within that very tourism product that successive governments have failed to pursue. Let us look at community tourism, for example. Yes, we're going to offer our sun, sand, and sea. And you just spoke about the global economic outlook, as you just read there from your paper. There are many persons, many persons, travelers, who do not, for one reason or the other, they do not want to stay in a traditional hotel. They want to come to a country to explore the country, to explore the people, to explore the culture, to explore communities. And we're saying that there are some persons who would pay to come and stay with a family. Some of that is happening with people transforming their homes into Airbnb. Some persons would simply pay to come to live in a community among people, eating their local foods and exploring the local environment. We have not pursued that. We talk about heritage tourism. This country is rich culturally. It has a rich heritage. And we often say, I've been saying for the last 30 years, that our story as Antiguans and Barbudans, our story as Caribbean people has not yet been told. We were handed a story through the history books, and we've had notable historians who have, over time, tried to recreate that story. Our story is yet to be told. We can, working with universities and colleges in their archaeological departments, in their sociology departments and so on, we can invite them here to come to work with us, to explore our story. There are a lot of spin-offs there. We talk about medical tourism. And listen, the DNA is a party that gives credit where credit is due, yes? And so one of the things I would applaud the government for pursuing is the kidney transplant program, okay? Now, and I believe that we have breadth and scope to market that. Let's just start right here in the Caribbean region, in the OECS, yes? And that is an area, that medical tourism, because when people get sick, you want your family members to be here with you. And if it's for a period of time, you allow them, you market the product in a way to say, listen, come and convalesce here, bring your relatives, and so on and so on. And we here again, it is an ideal opportunity for people in communities to pursue this kind of tourism. We have sports tourism that we have not yet pursued in any real and meaningful way. What is required for this? And these things are not going to happen overnight. These things require a purposeful government with a serious mission, a serious agenda, a serious commitment to transformation, to doing things differently, recognizing that the stakeholders are all around us. Mr.
Massiah, we're going to drill down into that issue of the diversification, for example, of tourism, because with respect, Ms. Massiah, there are some in the Tourism Authority who would essentially say that you've not been paying as much attention as you ought to have been paying, because they're doing some of the same diversification in terms of making moves on ecotourism, making moves on community tourism with Airbnbs and so on, and medical tourism with stem cell therapy and so on. What about those in the Tourism Authority who say, Ms. Massiah, with respect, you're pretty much just cogging what we've been doing?
Well, you need to drill down on it, because if I'd seen it, I wouldn't be speaking about it. So you need to tell me, because you would have researched it. You tell me exactly what they're talking about. Stem cell research, I know there's a building on Friars Hill Road, but do the people of the country really know what's going on there? This is a government that has, over the last 8 years, made a lot of grand pronouncements. We have not seen the benefits. We have not seen any trickle down, dare I say, to the people, to their lives and their livelihoods. So we're not about, I don't want to use, I don't want to do, I don't like to use other people's terminology, but I can in this instance, because it really is so. The ground fakings have to stop. They have to stop. We have to stop projecting, oh, we're doing this, we're doing that, and we're not seeing anything. How many people, for example, in that building that has the stem cell center, how many local people are employed there? Do you know that, Mr. Burford? How many students have been, how many scholarships have they offered to students who are interested in medical science? How many have they given? What opportunities have been given there for the people of Antigua and Barbuda? If you know, I'd welcome your opportunity to tell me, right? But what, and in terms of Airbnb, Airbnb essentially came out, not out of any purposeful government policy. It came out of local people who recognized an opportunity for them to tap into the tourism market and decided, we're going to transform our homes. Let me finish. We're going to transform our homes, and we're going to offer a service to a particular tourist clientele who could not afford the rack rate in these traditional hotels. And then what did the government do? Rather than supporting those persons, those families who demonstrated some sort of business acumen, some sort of ingenuity to transform, say, a garage. Their children have left home, they're empty nesters, they have vacant bedrooms, they decided to transform them, put a separate entrance, and so on and so on. The government said, aha, we're going to tax you. And this government, during the same pandemic period, I believe it was, or a little before, they would have slapped a tax on these families, these persons who said, listen, let's say it's a pensioner whose pensions are periodically late. I want to try to see if I can boost top of my income a little here. Government says, hello, hello, slap on the tax.
So let's talk about what
I'm saying is that a government, a purposeful, thoughtful, conscientious, people-driven government would seek to encourage more local people to transition into this kind of tourism product offering. Because you know why? I'm tired of hearing the Minister of Tourism say, oh, we don't have enough beds, we don't have enough hotel beds. So what do? What they're looking for is another knight in shining armor, an FDI, a foreign direct investor, to come here to be the savior of the people of Antigua and Barbuda. And so I'm going to put down a 3, 4, 5, 10-story hotel building and so on. Why don't we encourage our people? Why doesn't the government, working together, the same tourist authority, with local people to say, we want to afford you an opportunity to tap into the tourism market. And these are the concessions we will give to you. And we are going to help you to market your product, your Airbnb, and to allow every person who is able to do so to tap into the tourism market so that they can augment incomes. Mr. Burford, this is what a DNA government would do, Mr. Burford. We would seek to create opportunities for the people of Antigua and Barbuda to essentially increase their income, expand their businesses, and so on and so on.
You know that you also want FDI as well, correct?
I'm not saying no, but I'm saying why exclusively focus on the FDIs and not focus on the LDIs and create opportunities for more people, young people. There are a lot of young people who are innovative, who are imaginative, who want to pool resources together. I know a particular young man who has a group of friends who, this country educated, but because of the lack of opportunity here, because of the fact that successive governments have not created sufficient enabling environments for them to come back here to work, to invest, and to grow and expand businesses, have sought to stay in the UK, to stay in the US, to stay in Canada. But fortunately, this group of 5 young men, whom I know very well, they have developed certain business plans that they're waiting for a conscientious government, just like the DNA, to offer them an opportunity to make investments so that they can create generational wealth. A government, a conscientious government, Mr. Burford, I'm sure you would agree, which wants to empower its people meaningfully and sustainably, must begin to think of generational wealth for all. The DNA's motto is prosperity for all, not for some. Because in this country, only certain families and those who are politically connected to governments appear to be thriving in this country, Mr.
We're running out of
Buffett.
time. Instead of going back to look at some of the initiatives that are essentially being carried out now and how yours essentially compare with them, let's look specifically for the next few minutes that we have in this program at what a DNA would do in terms of your transformational agenda, as you call it. So there is the minimum wage increase. There is trying to incentivize and catalyze LDI, local direct investment. Mega wealth tax. Is that something that you still want to do?
Of course, Mr. Burford. We don't shoot from the hip, Mr. Burford. But before I go into the mega wealth tax, I want to talk about the policy of parish councils, because that is one of the singular most transformational policies that we have.
How would it be funded?
The DNA, Mr. Burford, how does government fund its projects? From taxes, from investments, from donations, from grants, and so on. Mr. Burford, the DNA is not walking into a space that says, you elected us as the government. Oh my, where shall we find money from? The same revenue sources that the Antigua Labour Party, the Progressive Labour Movement, the Antigua Labour Party, the United Progressive Party, and the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party, those same revenue streams that have managed to advance this country or not, those are the same revenue streams. I told you earlier, this country has a management problem. And we're saying as a DNA government, we will manage the resources of this country better. We are saying it is a matter of how you prioritize. But let me get back to the parish councils, please.
Yes.
The parish councils, we are the only party that has publicly come and said, we want to decentralize government. We want to take some of the authority I dare say, power from the cabinet, from that ivory tower, and put it into the hands of parishes, of local people, to do simple things that they need not check their minister for. The DNA is about another transformational thing. Stopping for once and for all this check your minister policy. It is disempowering to locals. It is disempowering to people. And so we say, through our parish council initiative, we're looking at 6 parishes on Antigua. It's a local form of local government style of governance at the community level. And so we're saying that we will, within the first 100 days, we will begin to put in place the legislation that will facilitate the development and the growth of the parish council initiative. Simple things. Cleaning of schools. We have lived in a country, school goes on summer vacation, and 2 days before school opens, you see the Board of Education rushing to try to get the grass cut and so on and so on. We're saying the maintenance of schools, the maintenance of recreational and sporting facilities, the cleaning of clinics, the cleaning of other public buildings in the community, the health center. These are things that a parish council could manage. The clearing of overgrown bushes that create not only an environmental health hazard, it creates a crime problem for citizens and residents who are just minding their business, who just want to live in a safe community. So we're saying, listen, we want to institute a parish council system in the parishes comprised of persons from the various villages or communities who understand the needs of the community. A bulb is broken, a pipe is leaking. Must you check your minister for that? You want to get the sporting complex cleared because you want to have a summer camp for children. You have to check the minister for that. You go to the parish council, and the parish council will know what its plans are, what is projected to take place over the next year. And they get people together who can make these things happen, Mr. Burford.
Wouldn't there be some duplication with some of the agencies which are already tasked with those functions now?
Which are those agencies, Mr. Burford, and which are doing
the Central Board of Health, for example, which has a responsibility for some of the functions that you talk about. National Solid Waste Management Authority.
Listen,
the Public Works Department.
I'm glad you touched that. Are you aware, Mr. Burford, that for the last many weeks, garbage has not been collected in Hodges Bay, Crosby's, Gunthorpe's, where I live, Fitch's Creek, town, in other areas. You know why? There is no money to pay contractors. I know contractors because they come to me. I speak to them all the time, who are owed hundreds of thousands of dollars, Mr. Burford. These are small business people who can ill afford for government to owe them all these monies. And essentially, what is happening now, they are withholding their services. They have to buy gas, Mr. Burford. They have to maintain their vehicles. They have staff to pay. The very staff that you're concerned with an increase in the minimum wage, they could lose staff. Mr. Burford, a simple thing such as garbage collection, that is something that the people of this country must not ever have to think about. Garbage is falling out of bins right now. I don't know where you live. I invite you to come to my community. I invite you to just, let's tomorrow go through some of these communities I've listed. So what we're saying is that a parish council where some of these things are concerned, and you listed garbage collection. I didn't. I listed some of the things that they could do, they could take care of.
Let me ask you, how would it be staffed? And would it be a subvention from central government, or would there be specific fees or taxes that would fund that? For example, and I ask that because for example, Jamaica, there are parish councils, there are local government elections, and these are funded, for example, they deal with street lighting and so on, and there are particular fees like traffic fees and so on, which actually go to the parish council. How would that be funded?
Yes, it is an excellent question, and it will be funded by one, subventions from the central government, as well as a percentage. And don't ask me to list the percentage because it's going to vary from parish to parish, because different parishes have different businesses. Property taxes that are collected and taxes revenues that are collected from ordinary business taxes. Okay? How is it going to be staffed? Mr. Burford, I'm sure you are fully aware that within the public service there are many persons who are terribly underemployed. So under a DNA administration, one of our first orders of business will be to retool, to reskill and upskill, and retrain public servants who are not being meaningfully employed. There's some people, if you ask them, what do you want to do? A lot of them want to be working in their communities. And so we're saying the parish council, in terms of the administrative headquarters, will be staffed by existing public servants who we will redirect, we will reassign to work in these parish council halls.
Will you therefore downsize some of the central government agencies which have some of these functions now, given that you're devolving some of these functions to the local level? Will it therefore be a downsizing of some of these agencies so that you don't have the duplication?
I think to the extent that there is duplication, what we would do is to further redefine the functions of some of these agencies as opposed to the parish councils, what they would do. Because we're not about, I'm not sure if your question is asking, let me not speculate, but I'm answering it how I understand it, right? We clearly, the fact that some of these things are not being done, maybe the agencies, maybe their hands are too full. Maybe they're not recognizing such an important function that they play. And so it's not being done. I know of a particular, I know of an unwritten policy, I'm going to say, that if you want an overgrown area in your community cleaned, and I have been told that, Mr. Burford, personally, me, Joanne Massiah. And I said, well, is it possible for you to clear some areas in the Gunthorpe's area? You know what I'm told? Oh, I have to check with the minister, because the minister say that no equipment is supposed to leave here to go clean any community unless he says so. Mr. Burford, not in 2023. That is one of the most disempowering thing that you could do to a person. Why is a minister who should be concerned about policy, who should be concerned about ensuring that the government's agenda, working with his permanent secretary and others, is being carried out and met? Why would a minister want to be concerned about whether Burford's equipment goes to Gunthorpe's? It's not my land they're cleaning, it is for the community.
We're literally out of time.
Yes.
I want to get some, this is the lightning round. As quickly as you can,
Yes.
please, responses. Mega wealth tax.
Yes.
Your shadow finance spokesman or your shadow finance minister says that you would be cutting, if your party were to be elected, you would remove the CIP, you would get rid of the CIP and replace it with the funding from this mega wealth tax. Tell me how would that work, and which would you phase in first to ensure that there's no fiscal hole or fiscal gap there?
We are fundamentally opposed to the selling of the Antigua and Barbuda passport, fundamentally opposed to that. So it is something that we would do away with. We would substitute it with the mega wealth tax. Now, I heard your interview with our colleague Anthony Stewart the other day, and you were engaging in a volley with him, the chicken or the egg. And what we're saying is that this is our proposal. The CIP, as it was originally contemplated, as I recall, there were certain sources from which revenue was to be derived. One of it was the investment component. We have not seen any investor, any CIP investor. Because you know why? Because this government, this Gaston Brown administration, was the party, was the government that essentially gave life to the CIP. Yes? What the Gaston Brown did, rather than improve, rather than demonstrate to these investors that Antigua and Barbuda wanted and could be different, he chose to engage in a race to the bottom with Dominica, with St. Kitts, and the other countries that were offering CIP programs. So what happened was that when these different countries recognized that there were other countries that were coming into the game, and I call it a game, they then decided we have to lower these fees. So the fees went right down, and it was a race to the bottom. So if I were a CIP investor, and I'm saying, well, I want to buy a passport, but Dominique is offering it for $100,000, but Antigua is $150,000. Well, These people are essentially saying, I just want to buy a passport. I don't want to have to invest. If I don't have to invest, why push a development option when I can just go and buy one, like pulling something from a shelf? And we're saying our passport has to be worth much more than that. So what essentially we do, we sell it for peppercorn price, not meaning the amount, but based on the value of what they're getting. They're getting a passport that allows them visa-free access to over 100 countries in the world. And they pay their one-time 100,000 and they're gone. They don't have to come back here. They don't pay any taxes here, but they have the benefit of our passport. They have the benefit of calling themselves citizens. And we're saying this mega wealth tax, they have used that passport to go to other places, to set up business, to set up industry as an Antiguan and Barbudan citizen. And the nation state, fair Antigua and Barbuda, gets nothing. Social Security gets nothing. Medical benefits get nothing. Inland revenue gets nothing. And so we're saying this tax, we are going to be targeting the CIP nationals first. We're saying that those who are billionaires and millionaires and trillionaires, and you would have heard we have some billionaires here too, and millionaires, some of them sit in the ivory tower. And we're saying that these people ought not, and I don't believe they would have a problem, making a contribution to the economy, to the treasury of Antigua and Barbuda, to support, to grow, to develop further the place that they call home, because they're holding our passports. We cannot allow our passport, our people, our country, just to be walked over by persons who really have no interest in helping us as a country and as a people to develop ourselves and to raise the standard of living in this country.
So I ask you the same question I ask Anthony Stewart all the time, literally all the time. But I ask you that question very quickly. So you remove the CIP immediately?
We never said we're going to remove it immediately. We said we will remove the CIP as we phase in. You kept trying to pin down Anthony Stewart and say, well, is it going to be the next day? Is it going to be the next month? Are you going to Parliament to repeal?
You're fundamentally opposed to it.
And he kept saying...
You're fundamentally opposed to the CIP. So I figure that
we
you're going
are
to get
fundamentally opposed, but we're not irresponsible people, and we're not reckless. We're not reckless at all. And so there's some things. I want to go back to what we would do in the first 100 days. We're going to be seriously bringing to the people the issue of constitutional reform. That is a fruit that has been hanging. That is a fruit that has had many discussions over many years. And our Constitution, since 1981, has not ever been changed. Not even a word has been tweaked. And certainly as we grow, as we develop as a people, certainly the time is ripe for us to fashion a Constitution that works for us. And that is a living, moving, breathing document. We want to remove the prohibition, for example, just to name two things, of public servants being able to offer themselves up to contest general elections. We want to remove the prohibition from ministers of religion from participating in electoral politics. Those are some things. We want other things, but we're out of time. But I just want to say to the people of Antigua and Barbuda that you've tried the red, you've tried the blue. It's time to try something new, and that new is the Democratic National Alliance, comprised of men and women who are selfless, who are incorruptible, who are unblemished, who are patriots, and who deserve the opportunity to be in service and of service to you, Mr. Buff.
But you're waiting until the 11th hour, the last minute, to provide your policy document, so that the people would know what they're voting for.
Mr. Burford, the Labour Party revealed theirs this week. So we're all on the 11th hour, Mr. Burford? The difference is with our policy document, it is not a manifesto, Mr. Burford. Our policy document is online. It is on our, you can find it online. And it is a document that we have been massaging over time, Mr. Burford.
So when will you put it forward, he said?
Sorry?
A day or two?
In a day or two, yes, Mr. Burford. And I look forward to speaking with you on that. Thank you, sir.
Happy New Year.
It has been engaging.
It has been
Good
an
evening
absolute
to the
pleasure.
people of Antigua and Barbuda.
Joanne Massiah has been our guest in the first of the primetime interviews with the leaders of the political parties. She says the party would go with a mega wealth tax and would have a system of decentralizing the authorities, the authority and the functions of central government through parish councils. Let's see how that one resonates. If it does, with the electorate, we'll see what happens on January 18, when 16 DNA candidates will be offering themselves here on the mainland for the electors' votes. We'll see how that one pans out. Really appreciate your company on behalf of the entire team. I'm Garfield Burford. See you next time. Bye.
The date has been announced.
January 18, 2023.
53 candidates have been nominated.
We have the runs in the board, man. We have worked hard. And we can stand up in any fora and defend our stewardship. And we can do so with pride.
Brothers and sisters, redemption is at hand. Time is now. Let us move together with the United Progressive Party.
DNA is the best choice on election day.
And electors are ready to make their decision. ABS is your election headquarters on TV, on radio, and online. This is Decision 2023. No holds barred interviews with the candidates, election officials, pollsters, and pundits. Plus extensive coverage on election day, from the opening of the polls to the announcement of the results. First, factual, fair. ABS, your election headquarters.